What a beautiful day out, huh? We're hanging out in Palos Verdes, Southern California, near LA. This is the really nice part they don't tell you about. We got the coast, some cliffs, beautiful beaches that you can only access by riding a bike. So it's perfect for an electric bike because there are a lot of hills out here and it can be pretty steep, you know, climbing, especially if you've got some knee sensitivity. And I absolutely love these new ones from BULLS. We're looking at the 650 EVO AM3. This bike is, you know, you're spending some money on this. It's not quite as expensive as the AM4 over here. This one's $7,399. Okay, and it comes with like the premium Fox Factory Float 36. That's a little bit, you know, wider stanchion, stiffer. It's got 203 millimeter disc brake up front, and it's got this really awesome Shimano XTR derailleur, 11-speed. But otherwise, you're not making too many trade-offs. Like back over here with the AM3, we got the RockShox Yari, still a very capable fork. It doesn't have quick release, which is interesting. It does on the seat clamp, but otherwise both of these use a 6mm hex wrench to get them off. And then the stanchions and everything, they're a little bit different. Fox uses this Kashima coating. RockShox has their own solution. It's like this black coating. It's supposed to be a little bit harder and support nice sliding. Because you can imagine when you're braking going downhill, you've got a lot of horizontal forces going into the bike trying to stop you with that front wheel. And by the way, only 180 millimeter disc brake on the front versus the 203. So you want to be able to slide. You don't want the dust and rocks and stuff chipping that up. So that's what the black coating is all about. And I think it just looks cool. And then we've got a RockShox Deluxe in the back. Both of these air, so they're adjustable. You can sag them for your weight. 150 millimeters of travel. And they both have compression and rebound adjust. So you can see the clicker right in there. Clicker up top and down at the bottom. Magura MT5 brakes, adjustable reach levers. Really nice stuff. You know, I've become a fan of Magura. I met them, some of their reps at like a press camp thing in Arizona, and they were talking about how their piston goes, you know, vertically in the same direction that you pull the lever versus in, and it's supposed to provide like really fluid stopping. You can maybe fit 3 fingers here, but it's kind of a 2-finger lever, just what you'd expect for riding a higher end mountain bike. And this is an AM, so all mountain. It's designed to be able to climb efficiently, but also of course descend, go over some rocks, and maybe even a little bit of downhill. So the all mountain, I don't come from like a mountain biking background myself, aside from just recreationally riding around, so some of this is a bit above my head. I just think of it as like longer travel gives you that floaty feel. Tends to cost a little bit more, nicer suspension. Sometimes there's like a little bit of dive when you're braking, and maybe if you're climbing, the geometry on this with the fork angled out a little bit more to take those big hits versus upright, it's maybe not quite as like twitchy as a cross-country bike. It does weigh a little bit more too. So, you know, about 55 pounds on this versus about 57 on that. So I was really surprised, like, wow, it's weighing a little bit more, but that's the medium-sized frame, 49 centimeter, whereas this is 44. It's smaller. I definitely noticed it. I love that it's got the seat post dropper with 100 to 125 millimeters of travel, I guess you could say, extension, depending on the frame size. So there are some frame-specific upgrades, but one of the things that I'm really enjoying about a lot of the new electric mountain bikes is that they're coming with these plus-size tires. So we've got the Schwalbe knobby Nick tires on this, 27.5 by 2.8. So it's a proper plus-size tire. A lot of air capacity, and the volume on this helps to create some cushion and also give you nice traction by creating that big surface area. You can float over stuff, right? Bigger rocks, you can ride over them versus having to nimble your way around. Back here at the AM4, I believe that's going to be spec'd with 2.6 millimeter diameter tires. So, you know, maybe a little bit lighter, but again, the bike weighs a bit more. Just interesting. And then the drivetrain. Down here, we've got the Shimano Deore XT. I see this on a lot of bikes. It's got the one-way clutch, that little gray lever, so I can click it into the up position, and it creates some increased tension here so that the chain might not bounce around as much. Perfect for off-road riding. Really big range here, 11 to 46 teeth. And then up front, we've got a smaller sprocket, 15 teeth. So the smaller sprocket, it's like a lower gear. It's gonna allow you to climb a little bit more efficiently. And then Bosch, the way they design their performance line motors, that chain ring spins at 2.5 revolutions for every single crank arm revolution. So they're creating an even higher RPM because that's where these motors tend to be most efficient, and it gives you that extra climbing power. This is the Performance Line CX. It's their mountain-specific model. It offers up to 75 Newton meters of torque, which is pretty great. It's a little bit noisier, and there is a little bit of friction because there's that gearbox going on. You know, even if you're pedaling this without any kind of electric assist, every revolution you do has to create 2.5 revolutions on the chainring. I don't notice it too much. You get a great mechanical advantage with your pedal way out. You know, there's a lot of leverage there, but it is a point of question for some riders. You know, the trade-off would be full-size chainring that maybe can't start or stop as quickly, or you have to have more gearing and weight in the motor. Although the Bosch motors are kind of heavy, this is 8.8 pounds. And then coming back to the battery, that's just perfectly integrated into the frame right here. Really stealthy design if you don't want to stand out on the trail. This is the new Powertube. This is what the battery looks like inside, okay? It weighs 6.15 pounds or something, so it's just pretty light, but a little bit heavier than the Power Pack 500. Okay, so it's still roughly 500 watt hours, 36 volts, 13.4 amp hours. Yeah, a little bit more weight. I don't know, it's just the aluminum casing versus plastic on the Power Pack. It takes a little bit more doing to actually get the battery off as well. So, you know, we've got the key in my pocket here. Can come over to the locking core. This is AXA. I'm trying to do this very carefully, not knock over the bike. And when that first click here, it drops the battery, but it doesn't drop it all the way out and create the opportunity to actually drop it on rocks or pavement. You want to be careful with your batteries, right? They're pretty expensive. It's one of the more expensive part of the bike. And I've noticed like BULLS also has the Broza system, Broza S on one of their other bikes, and that pack did just kind of flop out on me. And I don't know if it's because it's a sample or something like that, but I appreciate that the Bosch packs, they've got that two-step process. So now I have to go in here and get this button to that plastic thing. It's pretty tight, you know, they've got these bolts in the way. If you're wearing gloves, it's not super easy, but then when you push that, there we go, whoa, and then it just tips the rest of the way out. And now in this form, you see that metal shielding? That's going to provide some protection. It helps it match the aluminum alloy frame, 7005 aluminum, but it adds a bit of weight. It's like 7 pounds in this form, so I've weighed the battery separately, and you know, I don't know if it needed to be quite that thick. I don't think it provides like frame strength here, so you know, there's some weight that you're dealing with here, but at least the weight is positioned low and centered on the frame, and it looks nice and it's protected. So there we go, one-handed, come on, yeah. So it's seated now. You know, it felt pretty solid. I've been wiggling it around a lot, and we've been riding pretty hard. The weight is just really low and centered. It provides room for this Monkey Link magnetic bottle adapter thing in the middle. I'm kind of mixed on this because, you know, there are some bolts here, so maybe you could put your own bottle cage with those magnets. I don't know if they have an adapter for like a folding lock or a mini pump or whatever. It works pretty well with this bottle. It kind of gets the job done. Just barely enough room for that because they tried to keep that top tube low, standover height low, especially on the small frame. That's nice. You know, if you've ever been in the situation where you're mountain biking and you have to stop real quick and kind of put your foot down or whatever, you don't want to rack yourself on that top tube or get hung up and then end up like kind of losing balance and falling over a ledge. So I appreciate the frame design on this. I also like the colors, appreciate that they got 3 sizes on it. The air suspension is nice. This would, you know, given my budget, like this is the kind of bike that I would personally be looking at. It's still not super expensive at like $54.99. Paying a little bit more money, but you're getting a 2-year comprehensive warranty on this. You're getting dealer support. BULLS sells through dealers all over in the United States. German brand. They've been around for years and years, and it's kind of a dealer brand, so a bunch of dealers got together and tried to like put together bikes that were, the way I perceive it, like good value, but still using the kinds of components that they appreciated. So again, you got all the fixins on this bike, just a couple little compromises to keep it cheaper. Velo grips. These are ergonomic, and they've got like a locking screw in the bottom, so I like that. Got the trigger shifter on the right with 2-way lever for higher and then a multi-shift for lower gears. Monkey Link stem as well as a Monkey Link seat collar, and we can see those in action over here on the AM4. They don't come with these lights, but the lights are pretty neat. There's just a little magnetic slider thing, right? And so you could either use that light or a nicer light or a fender, and it's just going to connect all right there magnetically. we haven't had a problem with these falling off, and we have been riding over some bumpy terrain. And then here's the headlight. So kind of nice. My question mark on the headlight is that it's kind of fixed in terms of how it's aimed, and it's a straight like 0 degree rise on that stem, but the head tube angle, you know, could impact where that light shines. So it's like, I don't know, I'm used to having a light that I can kind of adjust and aim. At least it's not down here on the bridge and like bouncing around. It's suspended, it's out of the way. There's even room for swapping out the displays if you didn't want the Bosch Purion display. It's just, you don't have as much, there's not as much you can do to aim it down, and that bothers me a little bit. That's one of the trade-offs. So again, 15 millimeter through axle up front, 12 millimeter in the rear. Boost, which means that the hub spacing is a little bit wider, 110 millimeters versus 100, and 148 versus 142. So a wider hub gives you a stronger bracing angle on the spokes, and that creates just a stiffer feel and more strength, especially when you have the bigger tires. There's a little bit more weight there, the plus size that we were talking about earlier. So it's all about trade-offs, and maybe that's where some of the extra weight comes from at that 55 pounds. Maybe we should jump into the display panel now. Again, you can charge that battery pack on or off the bike. This is the charging port on the side of the bike. Here, we just pull this out. Pretty easy to get to. It's a little bit in the way of that crank arm if you were charging and moving the bike, and this thing takes a little bit of pressure to kind of, yeah, get that rubber in there. It's, you know, Bulls, it feels like they just barely got the covers. A couple of their bikes have covers that are just it seems like a little bit flimsier. And then here's the charger. Puts out 4 amps versus 2 amps on a lot of more generic electric bikes. 4 amps is going to help you charge faster. It weighs about, 1.7 pounds. Not too bad. You can take it along with you, put it in a backpack. So you got your water there at the ready. Maybe you're wearing a Camelback. Put the charger in there, maybe an extra battery pack if you wanted to. Good stuff. And then that seat post, I believe it's 30.9 millimeters, so maybe you got the Magura Viron, like electronic wireless remote dropper or something like that. That's the size that you'd be thinking about. And I've put all the specs back at the website, like the measurements for this, for the small frame size, so you could dig in and figure out like how tall you are, how it all relates. Something I think about. And then another little tidbit is this nice stanchion protector down here, so if rocks are getting flicked up, hopefully it protects your slider on that rear shock. But it's alloy versus plastic. Sometimes I see plastic might be a little bit lighter, just a little bit lighter. And then back up here to the cockpit, let's turn on the Purion display. Lights up super quick. I did see a little bit of backlighting. It's light blue, pretty dim, but when you're riding at night you can see it. Maybe if you're way up high like this, it'd be, I don't know, it's not quite as big, and it doesn't adjust in terms of angle. It's not removable. It doesn't have a functioning micro USB port. It has one, but that's for like diagnostics and stuff. So there are a lot of trade-offs with the Purion, but maybe it wouldn't get broken as easily, and maybe it's more stealthy. The button pad actually isn't quite as usable as the Intuvia. It has like a separate remote button pad, and those buttons they click in like more evenly. This one you have to press on the edge, like closer to the display, for it to action consistently, and that it's a bit of a gripe for me. Also, there's a walk mode button at the bottom. When you press that, and if you hold the walk, if you hold the plus, this would help you push this bike up a hill, because there are sections where it gets to be pretty steep, and pushing the bike 55 pounds up straight up could be a bummer. Or maybe you get a flat tire and you need to get back. Same thing, walk mode's going to help you out, and that's nice. I definitely appreciate that. So some of the readouts here are speed in miles per hour. You can switch to kilometers per hour by holding minus and tapping power. So that's cool, a little secret there. And then we've got assist level in the middle. Anytime you press plus or minus, it's going to tell you the assist level. And at the bottom, there's a battery infographic with 5 bars, so 20% steps. It'd be nice if that was a percentage, but one of the trip readouts here is actually range. So right now we have trip distance, 3 miles. Total distance, odometer, 3 miles. And then range, 64 miles. And I think that's an eco, so that's kind of the maximum range. We have been riding for a while, so that's you potentially get more range than that, but take it all the way up to turbo mode, 19 miles. Cool. And then the other little secret here is if you hold the plus button, it activates the lights. right? So you can see a light icon. If we had the monkey links installed, it would turn them on too. So there's a little bit more like kind of memorization and, oh, how do I turn the lights on? There's not a light button. With the Intuvia display, there's just extra buttons, but it's bigger, you know, not quite as sleek. I think that's a pretty good, just an overview on how this thing works. Because they're using the Bosch CX motor, there is an eMTB mode, which is like the second highest mode, okay? So it's like Eco, Tour, eMTB, and Turbo. And it's interesting because it gives you like 120% assist all the way up to 300 versus the other ones, it's like 50%, 120, you know, and that full range means you don't have to really think about pressing buttons over here. You just leave it in the eMTB mode, shift the gears appropriately, focus on enjoying your ride. So that's a new thing that Bosch has done. Also, another way that Bosch is differentiated is they've got shift detection. So as you're pedaling, it's measuring your pedal strokes and kind of this wave. And then anytime there feels like extra tension, it assumes you're shifting and it eases off a little bit. It cuts the motor power just for a second so that the chain, those sprockets, and the derailleur don't take as much abuse. And when you're climbing on a mountain bike, I mean, just imagine your pedal strokes plus that of a motor, which this thing can put out those, you know, 75 newton meters of torque. It's pretty capable. Yeah, so I tend to ease off a little bit. The sensors are really, precise, and they're listening closely. There's a sensor at the rear and it's measuring your rear wheel speed, sensor at the center and it's measuring pedal cadence, and it also measures pedal torque. So all of those three signals over 1,000 times per second. And that's where when you ease off a little bit, you're not going to be carried away and over the edge of a cliff or, you know, over a rock that you were trying to avoid in the way that some of the cheaper electric mountain bikes might have, right? Like there are hub motors and stuff that just listen for pedal cadence, and that's a sloppier signal. So this is a lot more precise. It does a really good job, and then the shift detection thing means that that motor isn't going to wear out your fancy derailleur quite as quickly. Still takes some wear though. You know, don't assume that you are going to wear it faster just because it is an electric bike. And then with those 11 gears shifting all the time, same thing. Okay, so I think we've gone through most of this bike, most of the specs and stuff. We've got quad piston calipers at the front and the rear, which is really nice. So that gives you a little bit more grab power, spreads out, maybe dissipates some of the heat. 180 millimeter rotors is decent. And then I noticed that looks like it's a 20 millimeter kickstand mount. So if you wanted to use this for around town riding during the week, or maybe you commute on like a cross country section and then on the weekend you're actually going downhilling or something, you could take that off. So my takeaway with the AM, like all mountain series, is that you can just do kind of anything. You can enjoy this bike in a range of applications, really feel comfortable if you want to, or you can not quite lock out, but you can really go to firm on both of those suspension elements and get efficient. The plus size tires let you float kind of over obstacles if you want to, and they give you that comfortable ride, because if you're going 60 miles or something like that, that's a long way, especially if you've got some sensitivity in your back and neck. So I'm a big fan of like the eMTB concept. I think Bosch has done a great job with their systems. They haven't always been quite as hidden as this, so this is nice. And then the way that Bulls has integrated the motor, kind of tipping it up like that and integrating it into the down tube and the seat tube, just taking up that bottom bracket, you get better clearance than some of the other implementations I've seen out there, and maybe a shorter chain stay. So you're going to have snappier, more nimble ride feel. Yeah, good stuff. As always, you know, I'm doing my best to get all the specs here and be really thorough, and I've studied like, okay, you know, split pivot suspension, what does that do in the rear? I believe that's what we're looking at here. And apparently it's supposed to give you good performance under braking and give you kind of a vertical travel back here versus sort of like a rainbow. And apparently it's maybe climbing wise, there's a little bit of bob that can happen, but you do have the adjustment on that rear shock. So seems pretty good. Please chime in if you have any other feedback. I want to become more educated on this, and I'm trying to be thorough considering the price point on these bikes and just how feature rich they are. So I'm going to hop on this thing now. I'm going to put it in eMTB mode. There we go. And then just ride around here on these flat sections so that you can hear the motor and get an idea for how it responds. Okay, just starting out real slow, and the motor's not getting carried away. And that's the joy of eMTB. But as I climb, as my torque gets higher, it's gonna measure that and then kick in. Pretty cool. It's definitely responsive. Just climbed this. The seat post is really not as high as I'd like it, so I'm not getting perfect leg extension climbing that hill. Didn't have to stand up, didn't have a problem, not out of breath. It works really great, but you do hear, you know, the motor, it's a little bit more pronounced, kind of that ring sound. When you're up high like this, you don't notice it as much, but sometimes when I'm on the trail and I'm passing people, to be polite, I kind of like, you know, bring my motor power down, and I kind of want to hide. I don't want to bother anyone. I try to ride responsibly. Back to how this looks, like this is kind of stealthy. So now I'm gonna shift gears while we pedal, and hopefully you can hear shift detection and just get an idea for what that's all about. I could hear it banging around a little bit. Maybe it's because I'm paddling. I wasn't actually giving it quite as much ease off like I would when I'm riding with two hands and, you know, not trying to crash. But overall, it does a good job. And I appreciate the multi-shift and everything. Bike feels pretty stable because of those wide tires. And I think just the geometry and stuff. These bikes are pretty comfortable. Hey guys, you're on the left seat stay. You're going to be able to see the suspension actuating as we go over some of this rough terrain and hopefully get a nice view. There's the ocean out in the distance and the front suspension. So 150 millimeters of travel on this bike. We got the RockShox going on. I'm going to be riding eMTB mode, which gives you 120 to 300% of that power output, a full range. And since we're descending, that's nice because I'm not going to like overuse the engine power, the motor, the battery. But I'm going to have it there if I need it, if there's like a section of uphill, which is perfect for these AMT all mountain bikes. Okay guys, from here you can see the 15-tooth sprocket with that nice chain ring guard. It'd be cool if you were wearing pants or something, but you know, it's a mountain bike, that doesn't happen a lot. I think mostly it's just going to keep the chain from flying off. We do have Shadow Plus engaged, the one-way clutch, and then you can see the XT derailleur and the 11 sprockets in the back. We'll just shift through. I'm in eMTB mode. Listen for that shift detection. We're going to be climbing a little bit, and you can see the suspension working as well. Hey guys, I found this empty lot and just the most beautiful spot ever, and I thought I'd ride back to the trail and give you a nice view. he's getting some nice pictures. Perfect place to do it. Yeah, and just a beautiful day. I'm glad I could take you guys out here and share something kind of special and have fun, hopefully being really thorough on this bike and giving you the perspective that you want. For the full written review, I'll see you back at ElectricBikeReview.com. Of course, have fun out there, be respectful on the trails, ride safe.